Hello and welcome to the Supernatural Fandom Track here at Continual. I'm your host, Gail Z. Martin, and tonight we're going to talk about mapping the road ahead. What is left for Supernatural fans to hold on to and maybe explore or discover with our favorite show, now that, at least for now, there are no episodes. But before we dive into that, let's let our panelists introduce themselves. And I'm going to go clockwise on my screen, which starts with Lola.
Can you hear?
Yes, we can. So tell us all about
you. Well, I was born on a Sunday night, Halloween actually. So Halloween Scorpio. Okay, so I did something cool this week. I finally made a paperback out of my first novel. My first novel had been an ebook for 7 years, and I finally learned how to make a paperback out of it with help. I tried to do it myself, but after 6 hours, I was crying, so I had to have help. But it's under my pen name, Lola Aker, which is not the name here. I need to change that. That's my actual name on my birth certificate. Boring. So that's called Trudy Lim, Spaceship Captain, Earth Detective, and Lola Aker on Amazon. Other than that, just doing the do, talking the talk, walking the walk.
And you're a big Supernatural fan.
I love Supernatural. Went to one of their conventions once. It was awesome. Just more money than I would have liked to spend, but awesome. A lot more money than I would have liked to spend, but awesome. And I embarrassed myself in front of the actress who plays Rowena. Maybe I'll tell that story another time.
Keith, how about you?
I'm Keith R. DeCandido. And by the way, I think Creation's motto is I spent more money than I needed to. I've written 3 Supernatural novels. The first one, Nevermore, the third one, Bone Key, and the fourth one, Heart of the Dragon, which came out longer ago than I'm comfortable admitting out loud in public. I also wrote the text for a Inside Editions put out these cute little journals, blank journals with stuff in the front, and they did one of John Winchester's journal. So it's the first few pages of John Winchester's journal, and I wrote the text for that as well. And also just fan of the show. And I've written in tons of other licensed universes, from Alien to Zorro, over the course of the last 25 years or so. And I've also written a lot of original fiction, including an urban fantasy series taking place in New York that has some similarities to Supernatural, the Brom Gold Adventures. I'm working on the second novel called Feet of Clay. I have a fantasy police procedural series that started with Dragon Precinct, and it's a mix of high epic fantasy and police procedural, and a bunch of other things as well. Lots of stuff coming out this year and came out last year and will continue to come out. You can find me online at DeCandido.net. That's me.
All right. Dahlia?
Oh, hey, I'm Dahlia Rose. I'm a hybrid author, which means I'm traditionally published and I'm an indie publisher. I signed my first contract with Hallmark, and that book will be out in October of this year. I forgot that it was 2021. I was just thinking 2020, 2021. And I write everything from paranormal to thrillers. My thriller pen name is Billy Arseneau. A lot of people don't know that because they were like, oh my God, that's you. And I'm like, well, yeah, it's me. So I run the gambit of genres, and I am one of the biggest Supernatural fans in the world. I have a bunch of memorabilia. And
awesome.
That's me.
Awesome. Lynn?
Hi, I'm Lynn Zubernis. I'm also a big Supernatural fan. I've written, I think, 6 books on Supernatural. I'm a clinical psychologist and a professor at Westchester University. So fandom, and especially Supernatural fandom, is my research area. So it's what I write books about. The last 2 books that I wrote about Supernatural, I actually wrote with a cast of Supernatural. So Jared, Jensen, Misha, pretty much all of the actors in my last 2 books wrote chapters for those books. Those are Family Don't End with Blood, and then the newest one, which was written as kind of a celebration of the show as it was ending, is called There'll Be Peace When You Are Done. So we wrote those hoping that they would be something for fans to really hang on to, with the words from the actors and the fans of the show to kind of get them through this really tough time. And I can be found on all social media at Fangasm SPN.
All right, Laurena.
Hi, I'm Laurena Aker. Online, I write as Night Sky. My full-time job is being a co-editor for the Winchester Family Business, which is the largest fan site for the show Supernatural. So needless to say, I am also a very big Supernatural fan. I've written over 300 articles and reviews for Winchester Family Business. I've also been a reviewer for TV Fanatic, which is another online website. For the Twilight fandom, I am also a writer. I have a book called Fan Phenomenon, The Twilight Saga, which looks at the legacy of Twilight 10 years afterward. What has been its impact on pop culture and our culture in general. And then I have chapters in other Supernatural books, one out, one coming out. So I'm still writing on both fandoms.
Very nice. And I'm Gail Z. Martin and Morgan Bryce. As Gail Z. Martin, I write epic fantasy, urban fantasy, steampunk, near future, post-apocalyptic, and more. As Morgan Bryce, I write urban fantasy, male paranormal romance. I'm a huge Supernatural fan. I run the Supernatural TFWNC group online and the fandom Supernatural fandom track here at Continual. I was privileged and fortunate to get to write a chapter for There'll Be Peace When You Are Done, which I'm absolutely thrilled about. And you can find me online at Gail Z. Martin and Morgan Bryce. One thing that's in common between both pen names is that I write worlds that Sam and Dean could walk into and feel right at home. Please pass the salt. So our favorite show has hung up its leather jacket and parked the Impala, at least for now. The boys keep teasing that it's not forever. We don't have anything firm and in writing. So for now, they're parked. Not like we're gonna stop rewatching it. And we do have 327 episodes to binge, which even for the most devoted takes a couple of weeks at least. But what else is there out there for fans who want something that is maybe not new, but is new to them? Or where can they still connect with the fandom, since right now and for the foreseeable future, even our conventions are parked thanks to the current unpleasantness? Keith, I'm going to start with you.
Obviously, the me sitting here saying "Don't call on me first, don't call on me first" didn't work. Okay.
Did not get those vibes.
Yeah, my telepathy has not been working very well. The one a genre that both you and I mentioned, Gail, is I think a good one for Supernatural fans to look into, and God knows there's enough of it, which is the urban fantasy genre. There's a lot of fiction in that genre, and there's a lot of Supernatural isn't quite urban fantasy in the same way, but there's a lot of similarities between that genre and what the TV show has done. In particular, it's a genre that is really good at taking the fantastical and incorporating it into the mundane world. You know, Supernatural, I mean, this is a show where when you had the Archangel Michael confronting Lucifer, it's two white dudes in flannel shirts on a farm, which is which I thought was the perfect image for Supernatural in so many ways. And that sort of thing, that sort of taking, the finding out that, Cain is actually, a guy living in the middle of nowhere, that the vampire, that the sheriff is actually a vampire. Things like that is the sort of thing that you see a lot in that particular genre. It's a lot of fun to play with, where you take a world that is recognizable and insert supernatural elements into it. So I think, that, like I said, that particular subgenre of fiction is a really good one for people to dive into if they're looking for that itch to scratch.
And of course, if they haven't already read the tie-in novels and some of the other supernaturally themed books, that's
Yes.
also some new ground.
Yes. I didn't want to be that self-serving and mention that, but yes, there have
That's
been.
why I asked you.
Okay. Then I will be self-serving. There have been, I think, 15 supernatural novels.
Something like that, yeah.
Thereabouts. The first one was my own, Nevermore. The most recent and probably last one is Tim Wagner's Children of Anubis. And there've been a whole bunch since by a whole lot of really good writers, and also me. Jeff Marriott, Rebecca Dessertine, Tim Wagner, as I mentioned, Alice Henderson. I think Yvonne Navarro wrote one.
John Passarella.
John Passarella, yes, was an excellent, all excellent writers. I mean, there's some really, really talented people that first. Oh, Krista Faust also did one. And one of the things in particular, not all the novels did this, but one of the things that I loved in particular about writing tie-in fiction for the show, and which a lot of the novels have been able to do, is do the one thing the show never did, which was embrace the location. For 15 years, Sam and Dean drove all over the country in their nice car, but everywhere they went looked just like Vancouver. In a novel, you're not constrained by that. You're not constrained by the fact that they're filming in Western Canada, so you can go places that have a distinct feel. One of my great regrets in Supernatural is that they never went to New Orleans. They never went to Key West. They never went to, there's all these places where naturally a hunter of the supernatural could go. But aside from their one trip to Chicago in order to try to create a backdoor pilot for a spinoff that never happened, they didn't really do that. They just went to, generic suburban places in Vancouver that looked like generic suburban places in Middle America. And so in the novels, we've been able to do that. My novels took place in New York City, in Key West, and in San Francisco. Jeff Marriott did the Southwest. Alice Henderson did Sierra Nevada. And what else? John Passarella did New Jersey. And Krista Faust went down south in Texas, I think, on the Mexican border. So which are all places that the show almost never went, hardly at all. So that was part of the fun of that.
Well, and then there are also things like you mentioned John Winchester's journal. There are there's a bestiary, there's a lore book, there's a map, there's a lot of stuff out there that is supernatural adjacent, even if it's not exactly new stories, or it's kind of restructuring information so that you can find it in a different way.
Yeah. And particularly early in the show. Oh, and there were a couple of tie-in comic books also that were done early on in the run. That were actually DC published them, and they were focused on John Winchester specifically. The early. I
think there's even a choose your own adventure.
Yes, yeah, it's called Roads Not Taken, appropriately enough.
For all those '90s kids who just need to do all that flipping. Great, thank you, Dahlia. How do you get your supernatural fix now that we're parked for the moment?
Well,
I'm two for the moment.
Just for the moment. There's the show on USA, Snowpiercer, so far that I've really got into. And there was a new show that came out on AMC that's over, I think, last Sunday. And it has more of a noir, kind of darker, paranormal feel to it. For the life of me, I cannot remember what that thing's called right now. But I've been doing that. And I've always also been rereading L.A. Banks' books, because she had a really, really good world that I loved, and like Supernatural took place in the regular world, and then you have the regular world, and then this whole fight between good and evil was happening among these group of people. So I'm going through that again and really loving that, and hoping that someone would actually pick it up and like they did with Midnight Texas for Charlene Harris and stuff, to actually make this into a series, because you could see more people that kind of look like me in the show. And I mean, and I love the diversity of Supernatural, and they had cast and characters that I really did love, and I'm just saying that I would love a fix of someone, like something that's going to be that badass and give me that same feel, but still pull me into the story and last for 15 and or more seasons, because they cut us off at the knees when they told me the boys were going to be, parking it. So I need something else to, fill the void.
And Ellie Banks stuff is great. Leslie was definitely a talent taken too soon. And it's a shame she didn't, get a chance to write more. But yes, her stuff would be a terrific addition. And you're right, it does have some of that feel. Lynn, I know you've got opinions. We've been talking about some of these.
Always have opinions. I mean, I think there's so many.
We can't hear you.
Oh, can you
There
hear
you
me
go.
now?
Much better. Yes,
Oh.
much better.
Oh, then I'll be really, really gigantic here. I could put my mic on. Maybe I'll do that after I'm done this bit. I mean, I think there's two things. There are things to kind of move on to, sort of make you feel better, whether that's the thing that Jared and Jensen, they both have new projects. So I'm going to watch The Boys. I've been watching it. I'm going to keep watching it. I'm going to watch Walker. But then I also think people also really want to hang on to the community of Supernatural and kind of not forget it. Whenever we grieve something, one of the things that makes it easier is if we also feel like we don't have to forget it and we can hang on to it. So you encourage Keith to be self-serving. I'll be a tiny bit self-serving too.
Go for it.
You said that. But I mean, I really hope that's what There'll Be Peace When You Are Done and Family Don't End with Blood can be. To kind of piggyback off of what Dahlia was saying, one of the things that we wanted to do with There'll Be Peace When You Are Done is to really spotlight the kind of evolution that Supernatural had in terms of diversity and representation. So yes, it has chapters. Of course, we're going to hear from Jared and Jensen and people like Richard Spade Jr. and some of the more well-known people, but we also have chapters from people who, kind of push that envelope, people who identify as trans or as non-binary or as PLBT or as, Black or Latino or Asian. And we really tried to make the book sort of pull out that representation that wasn't perfect. Like the show certainly never got to perfection, but it did evolve a lot. So I hope that everybody can kind of find themselves in the book too. And, maybe that'll be a nice thing to carry forward as you also find new things to pursue.
Now, you've also been doing some rewatches and new reviews with Fangasm to kind of start over from the beginning with 2020 hindsight.
Yeah, the other thing that I wanted to do in addition to the books is I have a website, fangasmthebook.com, and it's really just me. I don't have, like Laurena has a great website that has a staff and has lots of content. My website is really just my content, but I'm determined to keep putting new Supernatural stuff up. So I'm doing an episode a week, and I'm going back and doing the kind of very strikingly in-depth episode reviews that I do, looking back at them with the perspective from now knowing how the story plays out. So I'm kind of fascinated by how different the early episodes are now that I know what's going to happen later. You see different themes, you can follow things that are going to play out. It's been really interesting. And I'm also still doing interviews. So I've got new interviews coming up with Supernatural actors and some of the writers from the show, some of the directors from the show. So I'm trying to kind of ease the transition by keeping some new content going. And Laurena is as well.
Awesome.
Gail, that was a terrible joke. 2020 hindsight.
Hindsight, yes.
Yeah, you're right. Too soon.
I
Too
think
soon.
we cannot put 2020 in the rearview mirror fast enough, and it keeps chasing us apparently. Laurena, how about you? I know there's still a lot coming out with Winchester Family Business.
Right. Well, I am, as Keith said and Lynn said, I'm in the very lucky position of being able to continually generate new content for or about Supernatural. We have a staff of 15 people that are still writing about Supernatural. So not only do we have a huge archive of reviews and discussion and visual material about Supernatural, but we're still generating new publications. So probably 4 times a week now. We were always 7 days a week, but now we're probably 4 or 5 days a week that we publish something new. So it could be a rewatch, as Lynn is doing, a rewatch. And now that we know what happened, we can go back and say, wow, look at the connection, or look at this continuity bridge, or if it broke continuity, here's where the contradiction was. So we do have people doing rewatch reviews. We're going back and also looking at episodes from a visual standpoint, looking at the cinematography and what were the color themes that went through it and what did that represent, and fascinating stuff, because every aspect of a Supernatural episode was artistic. So you can't cover it all in just an analytical review. You have to look at all the different areas as well. And we constantly do games, and we have fan fiction writers as well that are on staff and that we invite to write for us. So that's new content. We have guest authors, Gail, as you know. We have guest authors who write quite a bit for us. And that's great because they come up with their own ideas. They're inspired by a particular thing, and they'll contact us and submit something. And we'll take a look at it. If it's good enough, yeah, we will publish anything from anyone, as long as it meets, you know, our standards of publication. So we're lucky enough to still be generating new content. We did consider for the end of the show shutting down the website. And as some of you have said, our community reached out to us and said, please don't take this away from us too. You know, we have friends on here. We moderate all our comments, so we don't have any wank. If we do, it lasts for about 5 minutes before we shut it down. There's no attacking people for their opinions. So it's a really safe place. And the community came and really asked us, keep going. We want you to continue to be a host for our conversations about Supernatural. So we will branch out. We call it the extended family. So we will cover anything that the cast is in. So we will cover Walker, we will cover The Boys, whatever movie it is that Misha made on Amazon, we'll cover that. And we, every Saturday or Sunday, we publish something called Supernatural Weekly World News, which is a fabulous way to just catch up in one place on everything the cast, the crew, the creative team, the directors, the former writers, everything they're doing. We'll follow their projects. So we do interview, you know, Richard Spate or for Driven, or Fisher when he did his movies. And we'll follow anybody that was connected with Supernatural and do interviews with them as well. So WFB is very active on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, but our website is really where it all happens. So it's Win Fam Business on all of those social media platforms, and just type in the Winchester Family Business, you'll get our website. So those are, you know, that keeps me going. But I will mention that I know there are at least 2, if not 3 new books coming out about Supernatural. 2, I'm not the editor for either one of them, but I do have a contributing chapter. And I won't mention their names because, you know, they're not mine. I'm not the editor. But they have been at the publisher for over a year that they've been done, and they're being held up because of you know, obvious limitations on their staff and that. So there are new books coming out that fans can look for that were written right about the time of last season, looking at it from while it was still active. So, you know, there's a lot of new material coming out as well. It may not be new episodes, but it's new material about Supernatural and the cast.
Well, I saw that Alice Jester's going back and doing some reviews from those very early seasons before the Winchester family business was really up and running, because you guys didn't really get started until a few seasons in. And now I see she's going back and doing some more in-depth reviews from those early days.
Yeah, absolutely. Alice is my co-editor. She was the founder of Winchester Family Business. And as I said, I have over 300 articles. She has probably, I don't know, 700 or 800 articles. So her goal is to have a review for all 327 episodes. And she missed a few. We started online in season 4. So she has to catch up on 1, 2, 3. And then all of us missed something, you know, a wedding or something we're missing. And so she wants to go through and make sure she writes an original review now for every single one of the episodes. So she has 100% record on the episode. So yeah, that's one of the new reviews that we publish.
And I've enjoyed those very much. I follow both your site and Lynn's site, and they're part of my survival mechanism here, because it's new stuff, and we're looking at old stuff in a new way. And
you know, I wanted to mention, excuse me, Gail. I was going to say that you reminded me when you said that. I think it was Keith that mentioned the comic books. One of my writers has gone back and done a video review, because we're not just, you know, all in text. He does video reviews of the full comic book series. Has gone back and explained what was the series, what was the content of it, and you know, who did it, when was it done, what was the storyline. And there were a couple of them. So he went and explained all of the content, and he's in the middle of following that through. So if you want to catch up on the comic book series as well, we've got that. So we also, and we, as Keith knows, we interview the writers of all the tie-in novels. So we have anything about Supernatural, you can pretty much just come in and do a search, and we'll get you started if you're unfamiliar with it, and show you where to go and what it's all about.
Well, and I've been thrilled to, in fact, I just sent you the last piece today of the 14 season recap based on Entertainment Weekly's 75 essential episodes, which I took some umbrage with, and 75 out of 327. How dare they? Some of their choices were just really bizarre, which I made it very clear in my snarky opinions. And so those articles have appeared on the Supernatural Team TFWNC group that I run on Facebook, but Laurena was kind enough to also give them a home on the WFD, which I'm thrilled about. And I've done a couple other opinion pieces for you there over the years, which has been a real thrill to be able to contribute to the site. I think one of the other things that may be new to many people, although it's not actually new, is the anime series. We've featured that. We have an ongoing rerun of the anime series on Saturdays, and have for a where we tell everybody to get in their pajamas and bring their Lucky Charms, and we're going to do Saturday morning cartoons with the Winchesters and watch the anime series. And it's only 22 episodes. But what's really interesting, and right now it's free to anybody on the CW Seed. You don't have to have cable. You don't have to subscribe to a paid streaming service. It's free for now, at least on the CW Seed. And it's a fascinating series. In fact, I did a panel with someone else who's been watching it with me, and we talked about how cool it is and where it diverges. But some of it retells some of the canonical live action episodes. Some of them are brand new episodes. Some of them are canonical episodes with a twist at the end you're not expecting. And it is a show about hunting ghosts in Midwestern America filtered through the lens of Japanese anime, which results in some really strange things on occasion. Because it's not necessarily two cultures that understand each other real well. So there's that kind of interesting, oh, okay, which is sort of fun too, but really it's great. Jared does Sam's voice throughout. I don't know what the conflict might have been at the time, but he does Steve's voice for the last 2 episodes. And it really only takes the show up through the end of season 2. but it does have enough new perspective and it's fun. And the episodes are only about 22 minutes long. Be sure you watch all the way through the credits. There are often extra scenes at the end that you don't expect. So that can be brand new to somebody. You know, if you haven't checked out all from the fan videos and the fan music and the con clips, if you haven't been able to go to a convention, and of course right now conventions are at a standstill, there are so many convention clips of Jared and Jensen, of all the other cast members. In fact, we did 3 solid weekends of programming in my Supernatural group called the Mystery Spot Weekends, where we replayed the clips of the J2 videos from 2006 to 2017. We still have a few more to go. And the panels here, and then some watch parties that we do every Friday in my group, where we look at the fan mashups and the videos. And so there's a body of stuff out there that might take you 15 years to get through, but it's all great. It's all them. Some of it's traveling back in time to seeing them look really, really young. Some of it is just from the beginning of last year, but it's all good. So that takes some of the edge off, I think. And then the other thing, which I'm just getting into exploring, so I'm hoping that those of you who have gone into it more, and Lola, I'm looking at you on this because I know you're a podcaster, is there are so many long-running Supernatural podcasts on a variety of different angles. And I'm starting to get into those, and we'll be doing those in the group, the Supernatural group, once we finish up this round of anime repeats. But there's a lifetime of content there, just with comments, parodies. Some of them are tracking the locations where the show was shot. Some of them are interviews. Some of them are, just one person's perspective as a video blog. But there's so many of them out there, and they all come at it from different perspectives. I'm just really enjoying wading into that. Lola, I know you do podcasting. What have you found out there from that perspective, and maybe just from some other things that are keeping you sane here while our show's on extended hiatus? I'm sticking to it.
Well, you blindsided me a little bit. I've been thinking like in my head what I was going to say, and I hadn't really thought about podcasts, but I'm sure they're out there. So,
well, say anything you want then, that's okay.
Yeah, look them up. I'm sure they're there. What I was thinking about, and you kind of touched on this, is conventions. When Supernatural was ending, the actors went on a ton of different like panels, and you could see sometimes they were in a group, sometimes it was just them. And some of them, they were supposed to be exclusive. You had to sign up and be there and watch it, but they made their way to YouTube anyways. And sometimes to find them, you have to kind of type in the actor's name and then maybe the date. Misha Collins, 8 whatever 2020 whatever. But I watched Stage It had a bunch of them. I watched all of them. I mean, every single one. You saw Jared Padalecki, you saw Jensen Ackles, Jim Beaver. I pretty much saw everybody, and it was really cool. You saw Jensen, he was in front of the Impala, the real Impala, in his garage. That was pretty neat. And also Misha Collins, when the election was happening, he had a really neat Zoom panel party type thing with Doug Jones, not the actor. That would have been awesome, but it was the Alabama politician. It was him. And there were a ton of people. I watched that. And so if you, and also on YouTube, they have like bloopers and, additional scenes and things like that. So if you really want more Supernatural stuff, you could spend the rest of your life just on YouTube finding stuff.
Well, and in addition to that, one of the things I didn't mention was the fan fiction. No matter what flavor of Supernatural you like, whether you ship or you don't ship, there is, I looked it up for something, and on that particular day last week, there were close to 300 fan fiction stories on Archive of Our Own alone. Now that's not counting fanfiction.net. That's not counting what's still out there on LiveJournal, what may be shuffling around in a undead state on Tumblr. There's some other sites as well out there, but that has really been sustaining me since we went into the last 7 episodes, because on fanfiction, they still have brand new adventures, and or you get to go back and relive the codas and the interstitials between the episodes from different perspectives. And there's some really awesome writing out there. And so if you're looking for new stories, that's another place for you to find those, because the supernatural is never going to pause when it comes to fan fiction. And I always joke with people that if you like the regular show, my Gail Z. Martin stuff matches that. If you ship, check out my Morgan Bryce stuff. Something for everybody. But yeah, the fan fiction piece is definitely a way that the show lives on. Any other things that we haven't thought to mention, because there's so much out there? Well, the conventions. Right now, we think we're getting conventions maybe late 2021, but it all kind of depends on how the current unpleasantness goes. But the boys have said they're still planning to continue the conventions. Creation has said they're planning to continue the conventions. What a wonderful thing it would have been to have all been able to be together here as the show ended and hear from Jared and Jensen and the rest in the moment. We didn't really get that, although we got some of it from Creation with their virtual experiences, which was still cool. But we do have the conventions to look forward to at some point in the future when we can leave the house again.
Well, Gail, and then you mentioned the virtual conventions. A lot of the convention circuits are going virtual for right now. So for example, San Diego Comic-Con, I participated in that in July, completely virtually. And a lot of the others, Creation has been doing a lot of virtual. There was a virtual opportunity for meet and greets with many of the actors just in November, I think it was. So you can still buy in and you can still pay money to, talk to the actors or listen to the panels have been free, or I take that back, not free. I think it was pay what you can. So
they were very cheap.
$5. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you don't have to pay to fly them in. Right. Or put them up in hotel rooms. And also New York Comic Con and Dragon Con also did virtual versions.
Yes, right. So a lot of the big conventions, you just have to watch for them, and they are completely virtual. And then the stages that Lola mentioned, you get a lot of the supernatural adjacent people. So you'll get Rob Benedict or Loudon Swain and the band members doing stages, or Jason Mann's doing stage it. And you could be from their living room, and you can listen to them do concerts of their new material, of their new releases, of some of their old favorites. So there's a lot that technology is enabling now. Cameo is a new thing just in the last year that a lot of them have signed up for, that you can pay to get them to give you a birthday message or an anniversary message or ask them a question or, whatever it might be. And that wasn't around very long ago. So there's a lot of virtual opportunities, not only because of the pandemic, but just because technology is catching up and they're able to come online with so many more opportunities, that if you follow any of the stars, there really is a way right now to keep in touch with them online.
The current apocalypse.
Dragon Con Urban.
Oh, sorry. No, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say Dragon Con Urban Fantasy has done. We did a live recap after the last 7 episodes, and we'll be starting back up in February with a once a month season rewatch and look at each season starting in February. And here in Continual, we've done a body, I think we're up to around 30 or so interviews and panels and episodes dedicated to Supernatural. And we'll be doing a rewatch on January 24th and on May 2nd. Anybody tell me what those dates are famous for? Dean's birthday and Sam's birthday. We're throwing a party on those weekends with the Supernatural rewatch here at Continual. So, and of course, it's all archived. It's all in the show, in the feed anyhow. But yeah, you're right. There's just so much out there. In fact, it's to cons that got postponed. You got comped into some of these virtual shows as kind of a thank you for not asking for your money back if you let your ticket ride over till the next year. So that was kind of nice too. Keith,
I was good. Well, one thing I wanted to
there.
mention is that well, the technology's actually been there for a few years now, but what the one thing the current apocalypse has enabled is that it's mainstreamed it, that like everybody uses Zoom now. You know, people are being forced to use Google Hangouts or Zoom or Skype or whatever, or StreamYard or whatever the hell it is that
Discord, my God.
Discord for work or for school or for fun, you know. I've been doing a weekly poker game over Zoom, using a website called that where you can an interactive website where you can play cards.
And you do read.
But I also what Laurena mentioned reminded me of one way that that it involves interacting with one cast member in particular, but also several of the others, which is Misha Collins' annual Great International Scavenger Hunt. Misha upticked Gish quite a bit this last year, doing little mini hunts throughout the year. These are all scavenger hunts. It's all basically silly things you can do. And a lot of the silly things you can do are things that sometimes help people. The money that you donate for it all goes to some charity or other. And one of the things in particular that has been done recently is some of the things, there are little event things online with various cast members where they would announce one of the things in the hunt as part of the event. And they did, I know Rob Benedict did a concert. And there was an interview with Kim Rhodes. There was a wonderful conversation between Jared and Jensen and the members of the band Kansas, who are quite grateful to the show because there's all these people who had never heard of Kansas until it became part of Supernatural and now show up at all their concerts. That particular thing, you had like, 100 or 200 people on a Zoom channel, whatever the upper limit was. And trying to lead a sing-along of Carry On Wayward Son over Zoom, which is basically not possible. And we proved it because it was terrible. But that particular thing, if you go to gish.com, there's always a new thing going on. Misha Collins has been trying very hard to keep that going as a way of easing the horribleness of the current apocalypse. And at the very least, the annual hunts are probably going to keep going on, and he involves several members of the cast in that as well.
When you do Gish, you never know what's going to happen. 2 years ago, I was doing Gish, and one of the things was we had to do a 30-second video apology to kale, the plant. I was at Raleigh SuperCon. I wasn't home. I didn't have a grocery store. So I looked up where I could find a healthy fast food location and went to them and explained, I just need to buy a cup full of kale. No, I don't want a salad. No, I don't need it in a sandwich. I just need a cup full of kale. So they were very kind, gave me this cup full of kale, turned around, and Felicia Day is behind me in line. And so
probably also buying kale.
Yes, she was. And I thanked Charlie for her role in Supernatural. And of course, she was very gracious, but you just never know. And then I went outside and videotaped my apologies to kale because it's still not my favorite vegetable. So you just never know where these hunts are going to take you.
Yes.
One of the early gishes that I did, one of the items was you had to make a hat out of kale, and then you had to wear the hat to some very swanky restaurant. So me and one of my psychologist colleagues from the university constructed these elaborate kale hats, put on evening gowns, went to this unbelievably swanky restaurant, and then took pictures with the guy who was parking the cars, who was the sweetest guy. He's like, I'll do your photo shoot for you. It was ridiculous. But yeah, Gish is a great way to sort of, when you're doing the team version of Gish, you get really close to your team members. So that is a really nice way to kind of keep the communities going.
Oh yeah, the team that we have a team called Inevitable Innuendo that we've got running for about 5 or 6 years now at least, and it's a wonderful way for us to, especially lately.
Yeah.
Although my favorite was, there was one year where you had to go to Times Square, and he had actually rented out the Jumbotron to announce a particular thing, and they would tell you what to bring with you to Times Square. And one of the days was a skirt made out of kale. And then we got there with our kale skirts, and then we're told we had to do cartwheels and have pictures of us taken doing cartwheels in kale skirts in Times Square. You can find the pictures on my blog if you're interested.
And having been to Times Square many times, nobody even noticed you were doing that, right?
A couple people were like, yeah, that's cute. Can you get out of my way? I got to get back to work. But yeah.
Or they needed to get a picture with the naked cowboy, the naked singing cowboy.
Of course.
Yes.
Dahlia, how about you?
With me, I religiously watch the reruns. Basically, that's what I do while I'm writing. But I find that I love the fan fiction more than I love authors have a way of giving you a different insight into, the Sam and Dean world. And I love the books. I own many of them. And I just sat down one day and I'm like, hey, everybody's writing fan fiction, so I should probably write a little fan fiction myself. It's not published anywhere. I just kept it to myself because I was like, this is weird and no one wants to read about Sam and Dean. And again, like Keith said, in New Orleans, because I have like extensive research with Madame Laveau and everything. So I was like, Sam and Dean, Madame Laveau, let's put them together and see what happens. So I've been doing that in my spare time. And
I read that.
Pardon me?
I'd read that.
Me too.
I will send it to you. But that was one of my main things because I love New Orleans. I've been there multiple times. I have a series set there and I was like, you know what? I have all this great stuff. And I, like he said, haven't seen them go to any, and I wanted them to go to New Orleans. And I was like, okay, the show's ending. They're not going to go to New Orleans. So I'm going to write this for myself. And I was like, I'm just going to write about 5,000 words and I'm about 25,000 words in. And I'm like, okay, this is pretty long. It hasn't ended yet.
And that's exactly what we're talking about here, is it hasn't ended yet. Thank you for giving me that segue, because while we're, waiting to see if we get a reboot, if we get, all the things we have theorized about, if the boys are able to make good on their promise that they're just going away for a little bit, and I hope that's true, we still have so much new and old and forthcoming in the supernatural universe, as well as the community itself of all of us who love the show. So for anybody out there who's feeling a little glum because, there isn't a new season, and I think we're all there, there's still so much more supernatural out there. I'm not sure anybody could consume all of it, which is a good thing because we can all try. And we are out of time, folks. So I want to thank my wonderful panelists for being here, and everybody told you where you can find them after the show, and I hope you go looking for them. Thank you so much for being here with us on the Supernatural Fandom track at Continual. There'll be a whole lot more, so stay tuned. See you soon.